Is the PlayStation 2 controller the best controller in the world? In my opinion, yes. Your opinion, I don't know. It is. Some people reckon this is a copy of the Super Nintendo controller. Okay, and that's understandable. Look at them. Okay, you got a D-pad there. However, they're pointing inwards, which is really annoying. Because playing games like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, recommend that game. In the cheats, you got up and it's pointing down, and down, which is pointing up, for a cheat. And how am I supposed to know what to type in? And I get mixed up real easy. But yeah, so you got the D-pads on both of them. You got select start. The arrangements of those buttons are almost the exact same, except their shapes, their letters. And you got shoulders. Okay, RL, R1, L1, R2, L2. I mean R, LL. So it's almost understandable why people would say that's a rip-off. But technically it isn't, because you've got handles, you've got a toggle, and you've got the analog button. And there's a couple of miniature things different about it. Let's look at this thing in closer detail. Okay, up to now, just like the Super Nintendo controller you just saw then, they used A, B, 1, 2 to label those sort of action buttons. But PlayStation was, I think, the first controller that used shapes to actually describe the action buttons. So, you know, but as you saw, it's the same arrangement as Super Nintendo, which was pretty cool. Yeah, they're nice, easy to get to. And if you get into complicated games, at first, you know, it takes you a bit of use to get the controls, but as soon as you get used to the game, away you go. Okay, got two toggles by either side. That's generally a directional toggle, whereas that's the moving around toggle in the game. These toggles are extremely good toggles. They're high quality, except the only problem is the rubber can wear off a bit, but I've never had that problem. In fact, I've never had a problem with any equipment before, except one of my controls did fray. That's because I wind it up like that, and you're not supposed to do that. But I do it anyway, to keep it neat and tidy. Yes, these things are like rockets. I mean, bam, 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 they're not going to break. Well, not that easy. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, they don't loosen. And they also got a button on them. I mean, that's the R3 button. That's the R2 button. So you can actually press down the toggle button, which you didn't really have before. Okay, yeah, as I mentioned before, you have the D-pad. As I said, it points in, which is, I don't know, a bit weird. But anyway. You got R1, L2 buttons, as I said before too. Which might be for shooting or something, I don't know. And you got start select buttons, just like the Super Nintendo. And you have an analog button, okay, which turns on and off your toggle. Okay, and you have to use a D-pad instead. You just got sort of a serial number on the back. And the last thing is this controller has a handle, okay? So, you know, it makes it much easier to maneuver around. If I get the Super Nintendo controller back, I can't really say that I ripped them off. I mean, it is extremely similar. I have to admit, I understand where people might be getting this from. However, it has a handle, okay? This is a bit more complex. You have to hold it all the way out there, and it's easier. It'd be easier to make a mistake. This controller, you have a handle, so it's much more comfortable, and you've got a nice groove that's perfect for your handle. I mean, this is a well-designed controller. It's like they've spent 5 years making this thing. I don't know. This is an excellent controller. Whereas this, you don't have handles, and it's a bit more intense. Okay? And actually, you might have noticed the start button looks like a play button, and the select button's like a stop button. Yeah, well, you can play DVDs on a Sony PlayStation 2, so I don't know, maybe that's where they're going. And Sony are DVD player making companies, that's sort of understandable. That's a PlayStation 2 controller, and that's what the output looks like. I mean, it's got an arrow. I mean, believe it or not, not all of controllers have an arrow. I'm not sure if the Super Nintendo has one. Nintendo. No, Nintendo doesn't have it. They don't show you which way to put it in. So that's what Sony's done, and it says Sony labelled there. So you know, don't make mistakes. So in my opinion, this would be the best controller ever made.